Yo, welcome back to the latest episode of the Footy Notes podcast. I'm your host, Bonisile Ntlemeza. I am speaking to you guys after listening to Mikel Ateta and Eberechi Eze before tomorrow's game against Sporting. I'll be honest, I didn't want to speak too soon after the weekend result. I was a little bit too emotional. Those of you who know me, I try to take a measured approach to Arsenal conversations, general football conversation, because we're dealing with human beings. And more so than anything else, like I like to take a very respectful and humanistic approach to looking at these things. Everybody else obviously gets to decide how they want to do this, of course. I was upset. I'm not going to lie. I was upset after the Bournemouth game. The team looked flat. The team looked bereft of fresh ideas. And Bournemouth, unfortunately, looked like the team in the ascendancy for most of that game. And they looked like the home team, which was hard to digest live and afterwards. And sometimes I like to take the policy of if I don't have anything really smart or good to say, I just need to shut up and process in my quiet space, process with friends, watch Manchester United lose to Leeds, and like watch other football. I know the City Chelsea game didn't do Arsenal fans any favors, but the few things that I'll say about the Bournemouth game is that Arsenal didn't deserve anything in that game. I know the penalty was a penalty and it was rightfully given, but that was also a lucky one. Bournemouth played better than Arsenal. They looked fresher. They seemed to ask questions that we didn't have any answers for. And I don't think Ateta or any Arsenal player or fan can complain about the result of that game. You just have to take it. And the assignment hasn't really changed. It's just gotten slightly more difficult. Arsenal, to take this league out of Manchester City's hands, they needed to win 5 of the last 7 games. Now it's 6 games left. You still need to win 5 of those games and you're in control of your destiny. Fail to get something out of the Etihad, then you're not out of contention to win the league, but that now is out of your hands, because it's in their hands as much as it is in yours. And right now, Manchester City are playing the better football. And I would worry if I was Arsenal leaving the Etihad with 0 points. That would mean City would have to just win their game against Palace and then outscore you. And at the moment, I wouldn't see Arsenal winning a shootout against Manchester City. It's going to be interesting to see what approach Ateta takes to that game, because Man City are definitely looking stronger and looking more fit and more complete than Arsenal looking at the moment. Arsenal look like they need a month off. The last few games I've seen, especially against English opposition, the last 3 straight losses in England and then the 1 win in the last 4 games was away in Portugal. And that was also not a convincing win. It was a disciplined performance, professional performance away in the Champions League knockout stages. So you can't dismiss that. The team put in a lot of effort, but then they looked flat against Bournemouth. And against Southampton, they didn't look flat. They just couldn't take charge and take control of the game. They ran, buzzed about, had a few chances of their own, but couldn't close the deal. And I think the problem with Arsenal right now is the front 6 positions. It hasn't changed for me. It's been like this for majority of this season. Arsenal have had a problem with Zubimendi, Rice, and the players in front of them. And I don't say that Zubimendi and Rice by themselves are the problems or individually are problems for most of the seasons, because most of the back 6 players, or back 7 if you include Raya, have been critical in building Arsenal's foundation for a good season. But what we've been waiting for since the beginning of the season is an explosion in attack, and that hasn't come, and I'm not expecting it, which is why I don't think then Arsenal would win a shootout against Manchester City. I think Manchester City will like their chances going into Sunday's game. They have a full week off. They've been playing the best football since the cup final. They've played 3 of the top 6 teams, scored 2 goals against Arsenal, I think 4 against Liverpool in the cup, 3 against Chelsea in the league. That's 9 goals without reply, right? Against decent teams in Arsenal, Chelsea, and Liverpool. But the one thing that Arsenal have, I guess, it's a blessing and a curse, because if you lose that game, then you probably will walk away feeling terrible, and that may have knock-on effect. But if you go to the Etihad and you get something out of that game, a win or a draw, you walk out of there still in control of where the Premier League goes, at least for another week. And then you have to deal with the remaining 4 games. I think the pressure of this run in is going to continue to weigh in heavy on the minds and the legs of these players. I don't think it's going to be pretty if Arsenal are going to win this league, and Teta spoke really well about it. And sometimes I get annoyed with his press conferences, and I hope he changes certain things that I won't get into about the way he approaches his press conferences and the way he answers certain questions. But I did like him speaking and emphasizing the fact that, there's a big opportunity here for Arsenal, and the perspective is, yes, the club hasn't done a lot of what these boys are doing for a very long time. And now, the last few years consistently, we are there in April playing for something. And that's something, I know when you're losing stretch or in a rough patch like Arsenal are right now, you don't want to hear that. But if we're being fair, it's not false as well, for him to say that, right? Like I know it reeks of somebody, trying to find support from elsewhere, supporters, and it reeks of maybe desperation. But if you take a bit of a distance from it, it's not a lie. Like they are doing things that all of us have wanted to see. These are the kinds of problems 4 years ago and beyond, between 2015, 2014, and 3 years ago when we went back into the Champions League. Like most Arsenal fans in that period would have given up so much to have these problems. But now that we're here, the goalpost has rightfully shifted, and the expectations are higher. But he's also part of, making that expectation go from where it was to where it is. And so it's a bit of a whammy with Ateta. Like, he's kind of a double whammy is what I meant to say. He's kind of a guy that, 1 minute you may want to punch him, but the next minute you may want to hug him, right? Like support him, but at the same time, punch him. I don't mean literally, like violently punch him. I mean, with your words, you might want to like be scathing and be critical of the way he handles things and handles himself, and the way he doesn't use the depth of his squad. Then every April, except for 2023-24, not just April, actually, the spring, Arsenal spring under Ateta is not a happy time. After he creates, great deal of hope and launches like really impressive beginnings to seasons. He's really, really good at that. But like the one thing that I'm critical of is that in the spring, his teams look like they need something else. And he seems to take sometimes a bit long to find the something else, which is why there's the consistency of, him being called a bottler or whatever, which I don't like the terminology of that, because it's just, it oversimplifies something that has a lot more nuance. But the one thing he can't run away from is he has to take ownership as well for how he creates the difficulties that his teams and himself face in April and May, right? It can't be a coincidence that you're suffering at this time of year. And I've several times compared him to Tom Thibodeau, who is a basketball coach in America, or Marcelo Bielsa, who is a football coach, well-known football coach, and like very influential football coach, by the way. Not the most winningest coach, but a lot of coaches take a lot from his methods. And I think Ateta is definitely one of those. So is Pochettino. And I think Iraola might be even a Bielsa disciple of sorts too, with his man-to-man marking and running hard and all of that kind of stuff, the work ethic stuff. Blue-collar mentality gets you only but so far. But then when you in April and May, it's the stars that get you over the line, in my opinion. Coaching and culture really gets you close, but then your talent gets you over the line. And I think Ateta has yet for me to convince me that when it comes to attacking, he's able to maximize the talent at his disposal. The data obviously speaks well in his favor, in that like he gets goals from all over his teams, generally speaking. But unfortunately, being a generalist in April and May is not historically the most successful way of doing it. You need stardust, you need magical players, your Cherokees, your De Bruynes, and your Yamals, and your Julian Alvarez, those kinds of guys who can give you good moments. And none of the Arsenal attackers right now look like they're going to give you a special moment. But we have to hope. We have to continue to keep the hope. And there's part of me that wishes Arsenal were not playing tomorrow, but then the other part of me is happy that they're playing tomorrow, because if they can get a win, I know it's going to be an emotional one. At least that means they are progressing in the Champions League. And at the moment, this team needs to find every reason to believe and every bit of confidence wherever they can claw it back into their veins, because it's been seeping out of their veins the last 4 games. They've won 1 and lost 3. Before that, Arsenal had only lost 3 games in like 48, 49 games, and they've lost 3 of the last 4. And yes, the Butland talk is back in the mainstream media, iSports, and all of these people are back at it. The only thing you can do to kill that is start winning football matches. And I hope Arsenal do win tomorrow, and that they can then get a few players back, because that's the other problem, man, which, is something Ateta really needs to look after. He needs to find a way to stop losing so many key players in the spring. Don't know what he's going to do. I don't know if Rice is going to be able to play. He didn't train today. Odegaard didn't train again. Timber didn't train again. Saka didn't train. Those are all players. If all fit, they would start. I don't know if Calafiori is back. He was not available to play the weekend. He played 90 minutes last week. That level of instability, it's hard to win things with that level of inconsistency in your selection. So they need to find something. I don't know what and where from, but Arsenal need to find something if they're going to hang on to their dreams in the Premier League and in the Champions League. Maybe a formation change, which is highly unlikely knowing Mikel, but he might have to, because he doesn't have a lot of midfield players. He might have to create something, and his wingers are not giving him a lot. And maybe starting them in a bit deeper positions, maybe in a 3-4-2-1 or a 3-5-2, maybe that creates different angles for them. And maybe you play them. You play Madueke and Martinelli in the wing backs, and you play them on their strong foot. Maybe that's the solution. I don't know, because they're both players who can go 2 ways, and then you play with 3 center backs. That's what I would consider if I was an assistant coach, at Arsenal. I would really strongly consider that, because the manager, I don't know how willing he is to listen, but he needs help. He can't do this by himself. And hopefully there are strong voices in that backroom staff who can cook something else up, because teams have seemingly found a way to stop us the last month. And that's the big talk. You have to find a way to respond. They've found a way to nullify you, find a way to hit back. And don't go out with a whimper. Even if you lose the league or lose the Champions League, just don't go out with a whimper, man. That was for me the disturbing thing about the Cup final and the Bournemouth games. The Southampton I can wash away. But the Cup final and the Bournemouth games, those are 2 high stakes games that we didn't show up and couldn't find answers on the pitch and on the dugout to what the opponent was doing to us. We have to find a way to stand up for ourselves. So I'm looking forward to seeing what lineup he does tomorrow, but I can't find it in me to think doing the same things is going to be the answer. So hopefully he and his coaching staff will try a few different things. It's not something too drastic, but something that gives the players that he has available a platform, and maybe a way of playing stronger and fitter players physically, so that you can maybe rest Zubimendi and Rice, for part of tomorrow's game. I know it's a Champions League knockout game, playing for a chance to be in the semi-final. If you run them to the ground tomorrow and then you have to take them to the Etihad, you kind of have to make choices here, difficult ones. And that's why this guy gets paid the big bucks. And I really hope he's prepared to take some big swings in the next week, because this is the biggest week. You can't just be safe and try to protect a lead tomorrow and then go to the Etihad to play for 0-0. That's dangerous, and I don't think that's going to work. We have to find a way to punch back. We have to find a way to make teams think about defending. The last few weeks, teams haven't had to defend against us. They've dared us to go against men v men, man on man marking at the back, and we haven't been able to find answers. This is a chance. This is the week to show what we're made of. Come on, you Arsenal.